I'm not perfect, and I'm very aware of what my weaknesses are. And this is something I struggle with. I struggle that I really need validation from other people, or I really struggle with change, or knowing those things makes it easier in the long run. I think sometimes it doesn't feel good to look in the mirror and say, here's my not so pleasant parts. But in the long run, you can take those not so pleasant parts and use them to your advantage rather than, or overcompensate in other areas. But if you don't even take the second to look in the mirror and know what those parts are, you're never going to be able to grow and be a better person.
Welcome to Connecting the Dots. I'm your host, Jessica Carice, and this space is a place where we talk about seemingly random topics, but in all actuality, they're connected together. And today we have a very, very special guest. Her name is Tiffany Anton. She is the vice president of the Biz Foundry, which is in Tennessee. It helps local entrepreneurs, or maybe you could say entrepreneurs in general, with any resources and coaching. And then she's also a podcast host of Powered by Her, and we just recorded an episode, so Thank you for having me on, and I'm so happy that you're on my show too.
Love it.
So Tiffany,
thanks for having me here. I'm really excited, and I hope people come and learn more about you as well. I think as a podcast host, sometimes your story doesn't get out there as much.
It's okay. It's coming out slowly but surely, and you definitely helped that. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Tiffany, how did you end up as the VP of the Biz Foundry?
It's such a crazy story. And I actually just had texted my dad this morning, and I was telling him about something that's coming up in a couple weeks. And I said, my life is just so crazy. I never could have sat down at even 20 years old, and probably even 30, and just written out, this is what's going to happen, because it just has taken some wild twists and turns. And so I loved school, when I was in high school and college, and I decided I wanted to be a teacher. And so I was a high school teacher for about 5 years in Virginia. And my first daughter was born, and I wanted to stay at home with her for a while. And so I did that. And then my second daughter was born. We had moved to Tennessee by then, and I wanted to do something more. Just being a parent, just being a mom is kind of not fulfilling for me. And so I wanted to kind of figure out what else I could do. And so the local entrepreneur center had posted that they were looking for somebody to do social media, or no, they said marketing. But I thought, well, maybe it's like social media help. They have a marketing person. I have no background in marketing, no background in business. I was kind of a science and math nerd. I taught math when I was teaching. But I thought, well, I'm kind of connected around town. I'll go talk to them and see. Well, their marketing person was quitting, and they were trying to hire a new one. I'm like, well, I don't think I'm qualified for that then. They're like, well, I like your attitude. My boss, who's still my boss, he said, I like your attitude. I'm going to hire you. And I thought, well, this is scary. And so I started working part-time, and we were a month in, and my boss said, hey, how come you haven't updated the website? And I said, I didn't know I was supposed to update the website. I had no idea what I was doing, flying by the seat of my pants, but I just really, really loved helping others. And I loved the idea that these business owners could come in lost and confused, and we could help them. And so I just started to kind of take, what else can I do? What can we do with this? And I just developed this huge passion for the service that we are able to provide for this area. And so then about 5-6 years ago, I saw that not very many women were coming in. And I thought, well, what can we do to get more women coming in? What do women business owners need? What are they lacking? And a lot were just wanting community. They felt alone, and they wanted a space where they could come together and feel like they could connect with other women who are kind of going through the same struggles. So that's kind of how Powered by Her was formed.
So with being the VP of the Biz Foundry and helping entrepreneurs, creating a community for women, what does your day-to-day look like?
One of the things I love about the fact that my day-to-day is that no 2 days are alike. I'm not somebody who can come in and sit down and do the same thing day in, day out. It's just not who I am. And so, some days I'll come in and I'm creating graphics for the Powered by Her podcast, or I'm finding guests, or I'm finding sponsors, or anything like that. I love connecting with people. And so, kind of how can I pull people in. Some days it's now as a vice president now, I manage other staff members. So sometimes it's having staff meetings, meeting with other people, making sure they're on track and they have everything they need. Some days I do business coaching. And so people can make an appointment with me and they can come in and find what resources that we have, or they say I'm stuck in this with my business. I'm looking to raise some funding and I don't know how to get people in. And so we talk about different ideas, or sometimes they're just lost in who my customer even is. And so we sit down and think, okay, who wants your services or your product? And so it's every single day is very different. One of the things, so the Biz Foundry itself has been around about 11 years now. And when I started, my boss, our president, has been an entrepreneur for years, lifelong entrepreneur, but he was doing so much on his own and didn't really know how to relinquish the control, I guess. And so he has a ton of connections at the state and federal level, and he was, bringing funding in and meeting with people from Tennessee Tech is our local university. And so meeting with people from there that he would get the students that had business ideas and how they could help launch, but he wasn't making connections with people on a local level as much. And so even our local chamber of commerce, or we have a local small business development center, having those connections where it sometimes is going to a before hours coffee meetup and meeting people in the community to let them know what you're doing, let them know you're a resource, let them know that they can send people your way. The area of Cookeville we're in or the area of Tennessee, Cookeville, is a very small area. And so word of mouth, any marketing person would bang their head against the wall trying to market in our area, because word of mouth is still the number one way we get clients in our door. And so that boots on the ground, grassroots effort is very important. And so for us, having those meetings, sometimes people are like, do you really work? You sat in there and chatted with somebody for 10 minutes. Well, yeah, that's important. So it's kind of that part of that customer service skill and just building relationships.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds really exciting. And you highlight a very, very important point about even in the entrepreneurship journey. One is delegation.
Yes.
That's very, very important. And then two is forming the right relationships with the right people.
Yeah. I think that sometimes I think that's something that most leaders struggle with, is how to delegate, how to figure out, even since I've moved up in our organization myself, okay, I am in a leadership position now. I am part of our administrative team. How do I connect, our president with the rest of our team and making sure that people know what they need? And I sometimes feel like that's one of my biggest struggles as a leader, is that I don't know how to delegate. I know I need to, I just don't know how to sometimes. And I think there's a balance, because you don't want to micromanage and tell somebody exactly step by step how to do stuff, but you also don't want to say, here's the deep end, jump in, So I think that's been a very big learning curve for me, of how to delegate and when to delegate and what are the proper things. And I think that's something I've learned a lot over the years.
Yeah, I think like with delegation, it's definitely an art to it. It's definitely an art. And you definitely have to release, like, you have to do it my way.
Oh, for sure. Well, and that's been something that I have people that I will say, do I not like this because I don't like it and it's not my way? Or is there something actually wrong with that? We run a co-working space as well. And so there was one point where somebody said, I want to paint the walls, put new flooring in, and put a curtain up. And I was like, I don't know. It doesn't feel right for me right now, but give me a second to let me decide if it's that I just don't like it because it's change, it's different, or is there something actually wrong with that? And we let him end up doing it. It's fine. But initially I didn't like it, and I don't love change. I'm not easily adaptable sometimes. And so it does take that pause of like, okay, asking yourself, do I not like this because it's not my way, or I didn't come up with it, or is there some reason that it's bad, you know?
That's a really, really good point. And that demonstrates to me a really, really high level of
I
self-awareness.
think everyone, self-awareness is very, very important, and I think everyone should work on self-awareness and emotional intelligence. um, I think that that's kind of the key to a successful life, is kind of taking that time to figure out who you are, what your strengths and weaknesses are. I'm very aware. I'm not perfect, and I'm very aware of what my weaknesses are. And this is something I struggle with. I struggle that I really need validation from other people, or I really struggle with change, or, knowing those things, it makes it easier in the long run. I think sometimes it doesn't feel good to look in the mirror and say, here's my not so
Yeah.
pleasant parts. But in the
Mm-hmm.
long run, you can take those not so pleasant parts and use them to your advantage, it, rather than or overcompensate in other areas. But if you don't even take the second to look in the mirror and know what those parts are, you're never going to be able to grow and be a better person.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. And it's so funny. Like in my journey, I had identified that I have a thing with people pleasing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I definitely put in a lot of boundaries in place, but it's probably still there because it's just second nature. It's hard to like completely cut off a certain behavior when you become aware of it, but I'm aware of when it may be taking
Yeah.
place. And so it to your point, like you could use your weakness as something good. I think it benefits me from a client serving perspective, that I want the best, I want what's best for my clients. But then the one where I have to be mindful of it is when I'm going to these networking events or networking groups and making sure I don't overcommit.
Yeah. Yes, I think that we just, like I said, being aware, knowing, okay, I'm a habitual people pleaser, and then taking that pause of like, okay, am I doing this because it really serves me, like your clients? This really feels good to serve these people and please these people because they're my clients, and this is building my brand. Or is this that I've been at a networking event and 10 people have asked me to come speak at events, but there's nothing that it's not building my business, it's not helping me at the end of the day. Maybe that's not the best way to people please. And so I think just taking that
Mm-hmm.
pause, we can get so lost in kind of the deep end of the pool that we don't pause to think, okay, which direction am I even swimming? Where do I want to go? I remember a few years ago, our local Habitat for Humanity was doing an event. They were doing a women's build event. So they invited a bunch of female leaders from our community to lead teams. They wanted teams of 10 people. And I said, well, I'll come to your lunch, but I'm not going to be a team leader. That's just not something I need on my plate right now. I feel overcommitted. I'm not going to do it. And I went, and a friend of mine said, well, you could have a Powered by Her team. So you could invite previous guests from the podcast, and it would be a way to help promote the brand of what you're doing with the podcast. It could help all these business owners be able to fundraise, and they're doing something good as well. And I thought, maybe you're right. Maybe I could do it so that it does have some benefit for me. Not saying that you need to think of yourself first, but when you're just serving you're pushing other people's agenda and never pushing your own, you're always going to come in last place.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure, for sure. It's like if you don't ever put yourself first with anything, I think that's where you end up feeling depleted. You feel like you self-sacrifice when you do it, like when you put yourself or serving other people's agendas too much. There's a balance to
For sure.
everything.
Well, for sure. And I want to kind of point out to people that everyone's going to have moments of life, and maybe it's a phase that it's 2, 3, 4 weeks long of feeling depleted. I don't think it's normal to be so entirely self-aware and emotionally intelligent that you never feel depleted, you never make bad decisions. I think everybody goes through that, but it's taking the time
Mm-hmm.
to recognize that sets you
Yes.
apart from the unhappy people in the world.
Yes. 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 Being aware that it's
Yeah.
happening, telling yourself it's okay, and telling yourself, to do whatever you need to do to rest or feel better or something like
You
that. Yeah.
mentioned having functional depression. And I think now
Mm-hmm.
you probably are able to realize when the smile on your face is real and when it's not. And there's times I'm sure that
Yeah.
you have to go through. I mean, we all have to go through things in life where you have to put the smile on your face, whether you want to or not. But I think it's acknowledging, okay, I'm just doing this for this time, this season, this week, this day, this hour, whatever it is. And I'm going to take the time to figure out and get myself back on track.
Yeah. 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 You raise a really good point, because like when I was functionally depressed, I didn't even realize I was functionally depressed. I just knew I was tired every single day. I knew like I was home all the time. Like it would take a lot of effort to get out of the
Yeah.
house, versus now, like I feel so light and I'm like, yeah, let's do this. Let's do that. Let's do this. Yeah, this is fun,
I
So
often
yeah,
say that
you
I
have a really good
get
point.
in seasons where I tread water, and everybody can tread water and you do okay. But I want to be really successful in life, to be happy, and to kind of find the key to it all is to be going in some direction. Treading water is going to tire you out. You can do it for a long time, and especially a lot of high functioning women, people in general, can just tread that water and they're fine. But I'm pretty well aware of like, okay, I'm treading water. I'm not going anywhere. I'm okay. I'm not falling under the water level yet, but I'm
Mhm.
going to eventually, because I can't tread water forever. And so I need to start
Yeah.
swimming in some direction to get to a place where I can rest.
Yeah, swimming in some direction. Would you say that you find that's it comes from like a sense of purpose, or how do you find some type of direction to go into when you are treading water? You feel like you're treading
I
water.
think that it does. It's a sense of purpose, but I do think it's kind of figuring out what your goals are in life. What do you what are you looking for? And one of my big I want to leave the world a better place than I came into it. I want to have an impact on others around me, a positive impact. And so I really try to put things in my life in ways that are offer me the opportunity to kind of connect people, but to in a good way. So about a year and a half ago, I had the opportunity to go with a nonprofit organization to Africa. We went to Kenya and I met some business owners and I was able to record some podcast episodes. But I connected with this young woman. She was 27 at the time, she was a single mom with two small boys and a fashion designer. And she just said, I love what your energy, I love what you're doing, and I want to kind of spread the motivation and inspiration and the energy you have to some girls in the village that she came from. And so we launched this mentoring program because I could kind of be this mouthpiece to celebrate these young men and women who are in this village, and I could celebrate all the things they're doing. And so I can tell others about it. There's an organization that we partner with that's a nonprofit that this is what they have, the curriculum. They have connections with people who are in Kenya who are leading these workshops and programs. And it just feels like it's the fit. And so I know, okay, this is something that means a lot to me. I can, swim towards these goals. And yes, there might be moments of this process that feel overwhelming or feel disheartening. When you're fundraising, if anybody's ever fundraised out there, sometimes it's can be the most depressing thing ever sometimes. And so, but you just you're like, okay, that was a no, but I need to keep, like, I have a goal of being able to provide funds for these young people halfway around the world. And this is something I'm passionate about. This is something I care about. And so kind of making sure you're in touch with those passions that you have is really, but some people I think don't even take the time to know what they're passionate about.
I was definitely one of those people.
Yeah. You think it was came from your parents, or other influences, that where it was just like, you have to achieve, you have to go to college, you have to get this job, you have to make money. Like, where do you think that influence came from? I love how I've just switched the script here.
Yeah, no. I love to answer because it's a very interesting question. If you would have asked me this question maybe 3 months ago, I would have given you a different answer. But lately, I've been realizing how much I am like my mother,
Mm-hmm.
and that's something I never wanted to ever admit ever.
None of us do, right?
Mm-hmm. And so I saw my mom. One of the biggest things that I it was like one of those sources of resentment for me. I would see that she would put church people first.
Mm.
So basically, I saw my mom, like, whenever she had free time, she'd be on the phone with somebody praying or something. Like, just all her free time would be going to serving people in church. And my mom doesn't have any hobbies.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how that relates to myself, I didn't have any hobbies because all my free time went into supporting my friends with whatever issues they were
Mm.
going through.
Yeah.
I would always be on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
I had no time for myself. I didn't have any hobbies. That's where I got it
Yeah.
from.
I think sometimes it's important to remember that we are a person too. The way, you talk about your friends or your people, it's always so positive. And it took me a long time to think, well, the way I'm talking to myself in my own brain is also a way that I'm talking to people in the world. And if I wouldn't want to
Mm.
say this to somebody else, why am I saying it to myself? Or if I want to
Mhm.
serve the people around me and I want to be a good friend, wife, mother, all those kind of things, well, why aren't I a good person to myself sometimes? And so I
Yes,
think kind
exactly.
of, again, as I've gotten older, I think that that's not something 5 years ago I probably would have said. But I think as I've gotten older, I've realized the importance of how you treat yourself is just as important as how you treat the world.
Mhm. 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 Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So it's like I recognize that, and then I think I honestly felt like it was through the help of God how I got out of like being on the phone so much, or overextending myself to other
Mm-hmm.
people, and just really doing what it took to just focus on myself. Um, yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that it's,
You're
you
absolutely right.
know, it's important to kind of take care and I think that's really kind of goes along with finding your passions and knowing what your passions are. And but so often I think it's just like where people go, oh my gosh, it's October already, I can't believe it's October, where did it go? Well, where did my life go? Where did I don't
Yes.
even know what I'm passionate about. And it's like, because
Yes.
you're 18, and when I was 18 and I was going off to college, it was like, okay, well, I liked math and science. I was on a robotics team in high school, and I thought, well, I like school, I'm going to just teach. And but I don't know that I really took the time. It was kind of almost like, here's the 10 careers that you can kind of think of and get into a career for these things. And okay, well, I'll pick one of these and just go forward with it. And when I first started at the Biz Foundry, I remember saying to people, these teaching and this is nothing like each other. I'm in such a different
Mm.
world now. And then at one point, I really started to look at like, what are the characteristics of the careers that I've been in? Because I really truly, when I was teaching, I told everybody it was my dream job. I loved teaching. And then when I stopped, I kind of was like, I don't know that I'll go back to teaching, because I think there was just a lot of red tape and political, kind of like working in corporate America.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so
corporate. Yeah.
when I started here, I thought they were so different. And then I thought, well, the things about me and the things I like about a work environment is I like to be a leader. Sometimes I like to say, like to be bossy or in charge. But I feel very comfortable in a leadership position. And I love, love, love helping people. I don't know if you're into the Enneagram numbers, but I'm an Enneagram 8, and that's the challenger. And so, yeah, I can be a little feisty, but at the end of the day, I love, love, love sticking up for the little guys. And so And that's what I did when I taught. I wasn't a teacher of the AP classes. I taught remedial math to ninth graders who had failed eighth grade math. I taught the lowest level of ninth grade math. Like, I taught a lot of, I mean, I had some students that were fifth year seniors in high school. They were struggling, but I really, really, truly loved it because I felt like I could help the little guys. And that's kind of what I feel like I get to do here. I think at the Biz Foundry and in my career path, I have a gift to be able to lift other people up and try and get them to see their value, which is why I think I've tried to do some work on myself and see my own value and let go of some of my own insecurities, because I can't tell these other people to stand proud if I'm not standing proud.
Yeah.
And so I think
Yeah.
that I felt this is kind of what I've been called to do, is to be able to help the little guys, help the people who feel lost and confused, and help them feel a sense of direction.
Yeah. In my journey of self-awareness, I've been noticing some of those little fundamental values about yourself that, regardless of what you're doing, they're still there. Right. So, like, for an example, from my side, I had a thing where I would invest all my energy in my friends or whoever's in my life to elevate their life. I'm still doing the same thing, but it's just not I'm not doing it like one to one really. And I'm not so consumed in that person's life. It's more so, okay, here's what I learned about my own journey with the podcast. This is what, the stuff I'm sharing. And whoever's listening, here's how you can improve your life and take it. And, whenever I get comments like, thank you so much, this has helped me so much. Like, I'm like, okay, I'm seeing how I'm using that gift of, you can do it. You can improve your life. You can do what you put your mind to out for the masses. And I see it's the same type of fulfilling thing where it's like, okay, I'm seeing how people are benefiting from the information I'm putting out there. It's still that same fundamental, skill, I guess you could say, or gift, but just leveraged in a different way.
Well, and you mentioned your mom and being in church. I do think that everybody has a calling in life, and there's some gift that you have that's supposed to be used in some way. And it's not always to attend to people's needs in church. Sometimes your gift or your calling can align with the career that you have, and you're able to connect with people in a different way. We had this woman come in a couple years ago. She had made a card game to teach the books of the Bible to her grandchildren. And we were doing a Christmas market thing. And so we were trying to have everybody who had products, we were featuring them on the radio and doing an interview. And she was a little nervous about it, a little hesitant, but she was trying to build a business and trying to get her product out there. So we had her on the radio, and she came in hot. I can't believe you put that radio interview on there. And she was mad. And I came in and I sat down with her and I said, what's going on? And she said, I'm not even funny enough. I can't even tell a joke. No one would ever believe that I built this business. And I was like, but you did. And your grandchildren are proud of you, and we want to showcase you. And she did not have any confidence in herself in that moment. And so for me to take that time to sit with her and listen to her and validate her feelings, and then be able to lift her up. She came the next week and brought home baked bread to my office, and people are like, I thought she was mad at you. And I said, well, we sat down and we had a human conversation, human interaction. And so, she probably could have gotten, maybe some of that at a church. She could have gotten some confidence builder from a church, but that's not where she needed it. She needed it in her business, in my office, and this is where I needed to be.
Oh my God. That is an amazing, 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 amazing story. No, it's fabulous, because one of the things that I was kind of shying away from was kind of like some of the spiritual values that I have and how I incorporate that in my day to day and how I treat people and stuff like that. And one of the things that I see, you have like a lot of those underlying factors, those underlying insecurities, those underlying mindset things that go on with people play out in the corporate space. And so now, like, I'm in the process of changing my branding to showcase, like, no, this is how I work. Like, I get to the root cause of what's impacting you and your performance as a project manager, because I need people to
Yeah.
perform, and these are my values and this is how I lead. And so you're absolutely right, where you can provide, let's say, those church type of,
Yeah.
moments in a non-church setting, because that's where people need it,
Yeah. And I think that that's kind of again, the beauty of life is to be able to just be who I am, be truly me, be genuine, and be able to impact the lives of other people. Then that's, to me, I think that I've talked to my best friend about this a little bit, and she is not an extrovert and she does not love to be the center of attention. She's a recovering people pleaser, and I think that there's times where you know she serves people one-on-one. She has a lot of people in her community that she's friends with through her, she has young children, and so through her young children, and she'll bring meals for people and take them to their house directly, and it's much more one-on-one. Where I kind of was made to be a bit more in the spotlight. I love it. I feel comfortable in it. And so I love being able to have lunches where we can come together and I can try and pull all these women together and kind of steer us all. I love steering the ship, but I like to have a big ship with lots of people on it. So, but we're not all
Yeah.
created the same. And so I think sometimes we think, well, I wish I could steer the ship, or I wish I could, have a bigger voice or have a bigger presence. But maybe that's not what you're supposed to be. And that's okay.
Yeah,
We forget.
yeah. That's another thing with like the self-acceptance, right? Like, work with what you got.
For
It's
sure.
fine. It's
For
okay.
sure. I think that's,
Yeah.
I did a podcast episode maybe a month or two ago, and um, this woman she does personal branding, but she said the first thing she says to people is to write down your list of your to list. I'm too much. I'm too loud. I'm too quiet. I'm too, whatever. And so write down your list of your twos, and then which of them serve you and which of them don't. And so I think so often we think, well, I'm too loud. I'm too excitable. Well, I kind of like the fact that I'm excitable. I think I think some people might think, oh, that's terrible. That's too much. I would never want to be that. But that's who I'm created to be. And I think that I'm just supposed to lean into that and figure out, because it's something I'm proud of.
Yeah. 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 And you know what I find? It's like the people that are too something, let's say too loud, they tend to attract the quiet
Yeah.
people because the quiet people like it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's my best friend and we are definitely yin and yang.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, that's so amazing. So, Tiffany, tell me, like, it sounds like you have a really good handle with self awareness, right? So, when did that start? When did you?
Ooh. Um, so I got divorced about 7 years ago. And I think in that time period, I think similar to, having functional depression, I think I almost had this like fat filter on, or a mask of just going through the motions. My life looked really great from the outside, but it wasn't on the inside. And so I really think I took some time to reflect and think, okay, I'm pivoting in life. This is not what when you're married, you don't plan on getting divorced, hopefully. And so, I had two young children at the time. And I remember just feeling very, very overwhelmed and tired and just getting mad at them for a lot of things. And not forgiving myself for a lot of things. And so I think it was in that time that I thought, I better do something about this. And I need to recognize the good and the bad about where my life is at and what I want it to be. And so I think in that process, going through some counseling and then just really starting to read. I think that reading can really be a way to transform. And I'm that kind of nerd where if I'm in the book, I'm like, oh my gosh, I read this in this book. I just read a book within a couple months ago that was called Raising Exceptionally Strong Kids. It was a parenting book, and but it was talking about the brain and how to rewire your brain and the way the brain works, that you pour this into your kids and this is kind of what you should expect as the outcome. And it really kind of shifted me. I think I'd already been on some awareness of things, but I'm just somebody, I think I've always kind of wanted to learn and grow, but definitely much more in the last 7 years of just, I want to be the best version I can. I think I probably also felt at that time a really heavy burden to be the bet. I have daughters. And so when you have daughters, there's even more, I feel like, more influence or more pressure as a mom to feel like, okay, well, you're the female example for them in their everyday life. And so if you're not, what do you want to see for your kids? And so I think that that's been part of it too, is like, okay, well, I want my kids to be able to know that they're not perfect and they don't have to be, but they should know some of their faults or their downfalls, and so that they can do the best they can to overcome them or just pivot around them, or make up for the things that they're not great at or whatnot, all those kind of things.
Yeah. So basically, it's kind of like managing a shortcoming or something.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was for me with learning that I have ADHD. It like, I didn't think I had it, but like I had the symptoms, and I had someone come on my podcast and he was like, oh yeah, that's ADHD. I'm like,
did you find, and you found this out later in life, right? Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that it's like, we think so often finding out that we're, I after the divorce process, I was at a therapist's office and she said, well, you have body image issues, right? And I was like, no, I don't have body image issues. I'm like, I just kind of know what's up. I'm not, I know where I rank. And she's like, you know where you rank? Like, what do you mean? And then I stopped and thought, well, I can look at a picture of myself and say, that's a great picture. I like the way I look in that picture. So people with, body image issues, they don't ever think they look okay. And she's like, but do you think you look good when you look in the mirror? So, well, maybe sometimes, but I don't think that that's what people see when they see me. Like, and I really, truly kind of got into the mindset that like pictures of myself, I mean, I literally would say to people, well, I just take good pictures. But these are pictures of myself. Clearly, like it's me. So why am I feeling like this is not, like, I don't look like that. It's a picture of me. It's not a filter. It's what I look like. And I was like, oh, maybe you're onto something here. And maybe I do need to work on this a little bit. And so I think just kind of being aware of, input from others. I think I often, when people say, like, kind of like you said with ADHD, like, let me try that coat on. Let me see if I feel like it fits. I had a friend a couple years ago say to me, well, you have some abandonment issues from your childhood. So you really struggle. Like you get worried about your friendships, or you get worried in work environments. You worry that people are going to abandon you. And I was like, literally no one's ever said that to me, but I'm like, let me think on that. And I was kind of like, yeah, maybe I do. Like, maybe that's been a issue for me throughout the years. And so it was kind of like, okay, now I can be aware that I am worried that somebody's going to leave. And so what do I mean, even in my work environment, employees that's the way the working world goes, is that people move from where they're living or they get better job opportunities. And that's okay. It's not a reflection of me. But it felt like it for a while until I discovered, okay, no, this is just something, this is this one part that I probably can rewire a little bit and not feel so, feel like everything's on me all the time.
Yeah, it makes you feel heavy. Makes you feel heavy. Yeah.
Said that earlier, like, you just feel light. And even though you're running your own business and you're not working for corporate America and you're doing your own thing, it still feels lighter. And I think that that's kind of the key. One of the keys to life is figuring out things that are going to make you feel lighter. Life's too short to be heavy all the
Mhm.
time.
Yeah. It's so funny, a random thought came to mind. We went to Egypt last year, and they have, they're all big about their burial ceremonies and things like that. And so, like, a lot of the hieroglyphics you'll see is, you'll see scale, and you'll see like the heart on one side versus the
Mm.
feather. And if the heart is the same weight as the feather, then whoever passed away gets to go into, whatever, I forgot the name of their
Yeah.
heaven, their version of
Yeah.
heaven. And if the heart's too heavy and, it's heavier than the feather, then they'll go down to
Oh,
hell.
wow.
Yes.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that's the thing. Well, and that's, I love, love, love traveling. And I love learning new cultures and ways that people work. And this friend of mine in Kenya, she said to me at one point, there's some mentors that are in Kenya that she works with that help her in her business, and they're helping run this program. And she said, I feel more connected to you than some of these other mentors because you're a single mom like I am. And I'm like, she's in, a developing country. Nairobi is this huge, huge, huge city with, various levels of economic, wealth in their areas. And I just thought, I feel, how could you feel like we relate? Like, and then I just realized that humans are humans, and struggle is struggle, and pain is pain. And so me being, worried about working, the employees that we have working for us and making sure that I'm doing the best job at bringing out the best in them is a struggle to me. And it might feel as heavy to her as trying to make money to pay her rent. And struggle at the end of the day in humans. And so I think I love, like, this, is your heart heavy or is it light? Is it lighter than a feather or is it heavier than a feather? And I think that's a really good
Mm-hmm.
way, some Egyptian way that I may go about in life further.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, no, that's really good. I think that is a good way to kind of evaluate like certain options, for example. Like, is option A or option B going to make me feel like I can fly?
Well, and that,
Like,
I think that everybody, you know, whether it's flying or not, because that might sound scary to some people, but, just being lighter and not feeling so
yeah.
drugged down all the time. I think, some of the things are just easy, like wearing brighter colors, or one of my things that makes me feel super light, is that in the summer, so I live in Tennessee, and we have 4 seasons ish. The winter's not too bad, but I'm from Michigan. So I'm kind of, the
Mm-hmm.
cold's okay. But when I get to start wearing sandals in the springtime and my toes get to be out, it just lightens my mood. And I think knowing those things that can bring you up, I know it sounds silly, but you need to do those things, especially if you're feeling a little heavier. Do the things that can compensate for that. Do the things that will lift you up and make you not feel so heavy.
Yeah. Yeah. 100% agree. 100%
Yeah.
agree. Like, so what are those type of things for you? Like, what are the things that make you feel lighter?
Well, some like similar to just letting my toes hang out when it's warm weather. But I also, I'm a person that, when I'm starting to feel heavier, I change my habits. So, you had mentioned getting off social media at one point, and I'll realize, okay, what is on my social media feed? It's a lot of, following celebrities and so I start getting rid of all the gossip and the drama kind of stuff that I'm watching. And I
Yeah.
start going to positive quote sites and reading more positive quotes. I'm a huge believer in the environment around you. And so in my bathroom, I haven't read these quotes in probably 2 or 3 years now, but all down the side of my bathroom mirror is a bunch of positive quotes because when I was going through that divorce and things were really heavy, I needed things to lift me up. And so I overcompensated by and I know it sounds cheesy, it feels kind of cheesy, or writing down
It
positive
does.
affirmations. There's
It works.
literal scientific research out there that it works. And so even though you feel foolish, writing down 5 times, I have value without validation, that feels stupid as a 42-year-old woman to write that down. Like, yeah, I know I have value if people don't tell me I have value, but I don't feel it sometimes. And so I need to do
Yes.
things. You need to get out of the daily habit, the daily grind of things, to do things differently, to feel differently. I feel like I'm
Yeah.
getting on a soapbox
Yeah.
here, Jessica.
It's funny. Like one of the things I've also started to do is like, you're a science
Mhm.
nerd, right? So like, basic physics, high school physics, and high school chemistry, they talk about like the law of
Yes.
inertia.
Yeah. Body in motion.
An object in motion will
Yeah.
stay, but you got to do something to get it out of that
For sure.
cycle.
I think I struggle with that a lot too. When, in Tennessee, we, during daylight savings, when the clock switches over, through our winter months, it gets dark at 4:30 in the afternoon. And it
Ooh,
is hard when it is pitch dark
yeah,
outside at 4:30. And I
that's
just,
crazy.
like I want to go to bed. And so then it's like you're just living in this slower, motion of your body all the time because it's like, okay, well, it's dark outside, so I just want to go to bed. So you have to fight against that to make your body be in motion. So yes, an object in motion stays in motion, but an object in rest also stays at rest. And so it is hard sometimes to get your body going when you're not, but it's important.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. And then even with the whole chemistry piece where like let's say you have a chemical equation or something like that. Let's say you want to make water from oxygen, hydrogen. You need a
Yeah.
catalyst, you know? You need something to inject that extra energy required
Mm-hmm. Well, and realize
to
that
get
I think sometimes I struggle with this too is like, but I'm so tired. I don't want to go and do things, or my heart is heavier than a feather right now. And so it feels like so much work to make it lighter than that feather, to kind of offload the dead weight in my heart. But at the end of the day, I think one thing that I really truly think about is the the long run of life. And I think maybe too much about kind of the end of life for me, of like, what do I want it to look like? Do I want my life to be, this heavy heart? Do I want it to feel like, um, I'm kind of dragging through everything? Or do I want it to feel like I used to have, remember the Mario game that you could be like the
oh,
raccoon or something, where like you would spin his tail and he would
uh
just kind of fly.
yeah.
And I used to have dreams that I was that kind, like I could just run and I could just take off flying and I could just kind of fly through the air, and it just felt light and it felt good. And I think of that a lot, of what are things in life that I can do to make myself feel that light flying. And I wonder if if it was always something. I mean, I haven't had dreams like that as much lately, but maybe my heart's lighter. But I think that maybe
Mm.
that's where I just felt more comfortable. And that was kind of my subconscious way of saying, do the things to be able to fly.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, no, that's incredible. That's incredible. And then so for other people who are feeling like they have a heavy heart and they want to feel lighter and they want to feel like they have energy to even figure out what their passions are, for example, what would be your top pieces of advice for
Oh
them?
gosh. I think just the single most thing is knowing you have to break the cycle. So you're not in a place of motion, of lightness, of you have to do, if you want different results, you have to do different things. And so just thinking in your head, I want this, but doing nothing to back it up is never going to get you any results. And so whether it's just going for a walk around the block, I do know sometimes if I'm in my office and I'm working away and I'm just starting to feel kind of down, just getting up and walking around the block is something that changes where you're at. And so physically, but probably emotionally as well. And so I think just really realizing you have to do something. And there's probably not a magic answer for everyone to do the same exact thing. But just wanting something is not going to get you the results that you want.
Yeah. 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 No, that's excellent advice. Very, very excellent advice. I think like for me, I wanted things so bad for so long and it never
Right.
came. Oh, it's coming because I'm doing
Yeah. Well, and I
something.
even think of like, I've thought, so how amazing would it be to have a women's conference? I've never done anything with it because I'm scared. And I know very well that it's not going to happen by just me wanting it to happen. I really have to, and I think that's a little bit of what holds me back. I don't know that I have the capacity to do the things that are required to do that. And so, kind of that holds me back. But I'm never saying never, and I'm not saying now. And so I think that those are okay to say too, is to know just because you don't see the results or you don't have the time to put in that right now, don't put it on the back burner. Don't throw it out. It can still be sometime in the future when you have the capacity to make those changes.
Yeah. Capacity for change. Yes. Yep. 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 Oh, that's excellent. Thank you so much, Tiffany. And where can people find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn, Tiffany Anton. We can connect on Powered by Her on all the social medias, Powered by Her community on Instagram, Powered by Her on Facebook. They can stream the podcast wherever. The Biz Foundry, the website is thebizfoundry.org. So you can find us there as well. So if you're local to Tennessee, there's a lot of resources. We actually have 8 entrepreneur centers across the state. So if you are not in Tennessee and you have a startup and you're looking for a startup friendly state, I'm going to say, come on in because we love startups here. So, yeah, that's kind of all the places.
Wonderful, wonderful. Oh my goodness, this was fabulous. Thank you so much, Tiffany. Like I enjoyed our conversation so much.
Thank you, Jessica, for having me. I love just being able to chat with you and chat about all the things. I think it's been a really great conversation. I hope that your listeners really enjoyed it.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will.